Hello and welcome to the big picture. The last week's crackdown on the Naxals by the CRPF in the forests of Chattisgarh, killing about 17 people including a woman and teenagers, has once again raised the hackles among many in the country, with none less than the Union Tribal Affairs Minister Kishore Chandra taking serious objection to the way in which the operation was conducted. The Union Home Ministry, however, has backed the operation and defended it. Questions are being asked if this was an encounter with Naxals or massacre of innocents. The larger issue of conducting such operations without affecting innocent civilians and tribals in the region remains unresolved. There is also the other key issue of the implementation of the Forest Rights Act, touted as one of the major achievements of UPA 1. The Minister Kishore Chandra himself has expressed unhappiness about its implementation repeatedly. The correlation between the non-implementation or rather tardy implementation of this act and the continuing growth of Naxal activities in several parts of India is also an issue which has not received the kind of attention it deserves. Today we will discuss all these issues while looking at how the growth of Naxal movement and implementation of Forest Rights Act is connected. To discuss this, I have with me here today an eminent panel of guests: Union Minister for Tribal Affairs and Panchayati Raj Kishore Chandra himself, N.C.Saxena, member of the National Advisory Council, D.R.Karthikeyan, former Director of CBI and Special Director of CRPF, Ashish Khetan, Editor Investigations of Tehelka magazine. And on the phone line from Raipur will be Mr. Sunil Kumar, Editor, Daily Chattisgarh. Welcome to all of you. First, let me go to the Minister. Mr. Dev, you have the kind of comments you have made about this latest round of encounter in Chattisgarh is very interesting. You have taken a stand that this is unacceptable. The Home Ministry continues to defend the action. Don't you think that a judicial inquiry or some kind of an inquiry is necessary to find out the truth?
Well, I think already there's a magisterial inquiry which has been ordered.
Right.
But reports which I have got from reliable sources, including the Congress party sources,
Yes.
have clearly said that 17 innocents were killed, and out of which about half a dozen of them were in their teens.
Right.
So see, I'm not bothered or concerned about whether it was a encounter or whether it was a massacre. What concerns me is the death of innocent tribals in a manner that it should have never been done.
Mr. Dev, you seem to be extremely convinced that these were all innocent people, but the Home Ministry and the CRPF and the state government continues to say that they were Naxals. At least several of them were Naxals, a few of them were maybe innocents. So this is an issue which needs to be resolved.
Well, I think the state government has been deliberately and willfully misleading the Ministry of Home Affairs over here. We have got reliable information from party sources, and I don't think this fact can be disputed that among the innocents there were also people who were in the teens and there were women.
Mr. Dev, you are saying the state government has been misleading the Union Home Ministry, but CRPF is very much part of the Union Home Ministry. You think the CRPF is also misleading the Union Home Ministry?
Well, the CRPF is a party to it. So what else can they do? So I think the Home Minister will get his inputs from independent sources, and then I'm sure he'll be able to decide on what course of action that has to be taken.
Have you been in touch with the Home Minister? Have you spoken to him? Have you met him? Have you asked for some kind of an inquiry on this issue?
You see, the Home Minister is himself waiting for inquiry reports. I am also gathering information based on inputs that are coming in from various sources. Once I get the views from different sources in Chattisgarh, I'll certainly take it up with the Home Minister.
Mr. Dev, you've also been quoted as saying that the Chattisgarh government's record in these matters have not been very good. You think that the security forces as well as the state governments in this country continue to treat the Naxal problem as a law and order problem? Is that the reason why all these problems are occurring?
Well, Well, this is most unfortunate because the Naxalite problem cannot be treated merely as a law and order problem. Now, as far as Chattisgarh state is concerned, it has the notorious record. When you see they started the Salwa Jugum movement.
Right.
Unfortunate people by the tribal youth. Youngsters were used both by the extremists and the state government to kill each other. This is most unfortunate.
Okay. Let me come to Mr. Karthikeyan. Mr. Karthikeyan, CRPF, you have held several positions in various units of the security forces. CRPF has been one.
Yes.
CRPF continues to be criticized for the way it operates in Naxal areas. You think these criticisms are valid?
You see, it's easy to fight a regular war with a known enemy, where the army has a mandate to go and destroy.
Right.
It's very difficult to operate in our own territory with our own people, where some people may be misguided, or whatever may be the reason, grievances genuine or imaginary, they have got a grievance against the society, against the state. So, they have taken it to the point of taking armed insurrection, you can say that. Now, dealing with them for any force, it's a very difficult task. It's not as easy as fighting a known enemy.
Right.
Here, you are not fighting your enemy. You're dealing with your own people, maybe misguided. But there, very difficult to identify who exactly is the militant, even if you want to take them on. And as I from the reports, press reports I have been seeing, they say they were going to a particular place.
It was an operation conducted in the night.
No, in the night it happens very often.
Yes.
They were going to a place on intelligence where there is a meeting of the Naxal leaders planning an attack on the forces. They say on the
That is the presumption.
That is the statement of the CRPF,
Right.
accepted by the Home Ministry also.
Right.
So, they say on the way they were fired at by a group of people. They say they returned the fire. This is the statement in dead of night, in which case you cannot identify who is what. They will fire in the direction of where from there the bullet comes. Now, there is a dispute now, because this the ruling party in the center come out with a statement that all innocent, and a couple of ministers also given statement, where the CRPF have made a statement which is accepted by the Home Ministry, Home Secretary, even Home Minister also. Now, the truth can be found out only in an inquiry. It's a very difficult operation, because it's easy, as I am telling you, to fight a war with an enemy. They are our own people, misguided people.
Mr. Karthikeyan, the larger question. The larger question is the CRPF trained to handle these kind of situations at all?
They are the only force trained. They are the most internal.
The question is, the criticism is that this issue is being tackled as a law and order problem. It's much larger than a law and order problem. Is the CRPF, something like this, the force, the CRPF, is it sensitive to the problem, the larger issue, or do they just deal it as a law and order problem? They see them as somebody they need to tackle, with arms and ammunition.
To that, my answer will be, CRPF did not create the problem. It is the lack of governance. Failure of the administration for decades has resulted in a large sections of the people, particularly the tribal areas, feeling they are neglected.
Right.
And I have always been telling you, it's because of the corruption. Beautiful schemes are there for the government of India. Thousands of crores are allotted. They are not teaching the people. They are not teaching the people, so they are angry with the society. They are angry with the state. No, so they are taken to guns. It is not correct, but they are misguided people. The CRPF, there is no better way. There is no other better force available to you today than this.
Mr. Saxena, how do you agree with Mr. Karthikeyan? There is no other better force available, and is, according to you, in your own experience of dealing with these things, you have done a lot of study on this. Do you think CRPF or any of these security forces have been trained to deal with this problem sensitively?
In fact, the lack of development is the larger issue.
Absolutely.
And I do not know whether it is the job of CRPF or any security agency to do development in the area.
Absolutely.
If you look at the tribal problem in India, in the last 60 years, some of the problems which have remained totally unaddressed are land alienation, which means that millions of acres of land have been taken away from tribals by the non-tribals.
Right.
in connivance with government. I went to a village in Kalahandi, which has totally become now Telugu speaking, because when irrigation was introduced there, then people, farmers from Visakhapatnam came and occupied that land. So, land alienation, indebtedness, displacement, relations with forests, non-implementation of PESA, Panchayati Accession to Scheduled Areas Act, shift in cultivation, bad governance. These are the issues where no attention has been paid. If you ask the ministry, let me finish.
Yeah.
When you ask the ministry, they say, we don't deal with these subjects. So therefore, who's dealing with these subjects, no one knows. That is the main issue.
In fact, sir,
because
we'll come to
the
issue of the Forest Rights Act, which we thought when it came into force that this will address these problems, to a great extent, but which has not happened. Ashish, as far as this Chattisgarh encounter is concerned, Mr. Karthikeyan says that there is no better way of, there is no other force, and but you have travelled in these areas, and you think the CRPF is sensitive. Do they operate? There is no doubt that they operate in very tough conditions, as Mr. Karthikeyan says, and it's a thankless job.
I have travelled around these areas. If you speak to cops in Andhra Pradesh, and Andhra Pradesh police has very successfully dealt with the problem of Naxalism. So much so that today Naxalites don't exist in Andhra Pradesh.
Yeah,
in fact, the leadership of Naxalites is Andhrai.
Yes, absolutely.
But the Andhrites have moved over to Chattisgarh. They are operating from Chattisgarh.
And
so
also
if you
Jharkhand.
speak to cops in Andhra Pradesh, I am talking about the stalwarts of anti-Naxalite operations in Andhra Pradesh, they will say that CRPF is a law and order police force. They are a police force of lathis and law and order. They are not the police force or paramilitary force meant for handling guerrilla warfare. So, if you see in Andhra Pradesh, they don't use CRPF for anti-Naxalite operations in the jungles. They use their own locally trained police force. So, they don't use CRPF. CRPF they use only for post protection. So,
Right.
if you travel around Andhra Pradesh, Naxal affected districts, you will find that police stations, they are guarded by CRPF. CRPF has only been deployed there to guard the post, to protect the post, and at most, some patrolling up to 3 kilometers or 4 kilometers from the post. But they don't use CRPF for anti-Naxalite operations in the deep in the jungles.
Okay. I have Sunil Kumar, the editor of Daily Chattisgarh, on the phone line from Raipur. Sunil, you have been hearing the discussion. Are you there?
Yeah.
Sunil, my question is, how far has the Chattisgarh government been able to tackle this problem? I was going through a report which says that in the implementation of the Forest Rights Act, Chattisgarh government has not been really up to the mark. You think that this is one of the reasons for the growth of Chattisgarh? The Naxal movement is growing in Chattisgarh. They have not been able to control it despite the Salwa Judum and all those things.
Girish, if you look at performance of Chattisgarh on the chart of Forest Rights Act all over the country, then it stands somewhere in the middle.
Right.
Dr. Saxena had visited Chattisgarh and he has witnessed it. And what he had seen were minor problems, but implementation to a greater extent than many other states. So it is not the sole problem. At the same time, I would like to draw your attention to a fact that 12 years back when Chattisgarh came into existence, it got the most ill-prepared police machinery as well as administrative machinery because this area was largely neglected from capital city of Bhopal.
Right.
So this state started at a very bad and poor note, and due to Congress government of last 10 years before the state came into existence. So Bastar area, which is we are discussing today, is largely affected by corruption, inefficiency in administration, and tribal rights and land rights is one part of that, but there are other issues. I was also listening to CRPF and the force being used in Bastar. I would like to say Chhattisgarh government is under a kind of moral obligation to protect the CRPF in this recent encounter, which is the reason why we are discussing it here. Because the CRPF is the biggest force of protecting Bastar.
Yes.
At the same time, I was shocked to hear the statement of Central Home Secretary that no inquiry is required.
Absolutely.
This is the bureaucratic attitude which is making things more pathetic.
Okay.
How could you say more than a dozen and a half people are killed and you are saying that no inquiry is needed? This is what people of Bastar make feel, that Naxals are taking more care of them.
Okay. I think you made a very interesting point. Sunil, please stay on. I'll come back to you. Mr. Karthikeyan.
Yes. You see, I have always held, not today, when Salva Judum was proposed by the state government and supported by the government of India,
Right.
I said Salva Judum is a disaster.
Right.
It is the abdication of responsibility on the part of the government to say, you people can fight against
Fight
each
among-
other.
yeah,
No,
set
that
them-
was
set them
disaster.
against each
So
other
when I
and-
said that, the state government, central government were all supporting Salva Judum.
Right.
3 months later, Supreme Court said it is abdication of responsibility.
Right.
In fact, today things have become worse because of Salva Judum.
Okay.
Things would have been far better to handle, but for the implementation of Salva Judum in a very wrong manner. You have to protect a lot of people. You are trying to divide the whole tribal community. It was a totally ab initio, it was a wrong policy. And unfortunately, we have made things worse.
Okay.
And about Andhra Pradesh.
Yes.
I have been dealing with it for a long time. You see, now it's after a long time. CRPF was deployed for a long time. In fact, I was also there, all over. In fact, they trained these greyhounds over a long period of time.
Right.
Then, at my instance, Chandra Naidu opened negotiation because we want to tell the world what are their grievances. If they are genuine, you solve them. If they are not genuine, go with a heavy hand and strike them, then the people will support. Now, Chhattisgarh government, if the state government had its own force capable of doing it, why do they ask for CRPF?
Absolutely. Anyway, we will continue this discussion. We need to go into a short break now. We'll come back and discuss the issue of the Forest Rights Act, how its lack of implementation or tardy implementation has resulted in the growth of Naxal movement in this country. Please keep watching. We'll be back very soon. Welcome back. We are discussing the encounter, Naxal encounter in Chhattisgarh, and looking at the larger picture, how the Naxal movement and the lack of implementation of the Forest Rights Act is correlated. Let me get back to the minister. Mr. Dev, the issue of implementation of Forest Rights Act, one of the biggest criticisms against your ministry is in 2008, this act was enacted. It's 4 years now. Your ministry has been very tardy in monitoring the investigation. Of course, I know you have written to all the state governments and you have been repeatedly telling them, but where does this issue stand today? Has the center not been able to get the state governments to implement it effectively?
You see, after all, the job of the central government is to monitor, to keep issuing guidelines, reminding them, which we have been doing from here. But I'd like to impress upon you the fact that you see, the implementing authorities ultimately they are the state governments.
Right.
And unfortunately, the state governments have not been very effective in implementing it. There have been large-scale rejections which have come to my notice. So in fact, actually a lot of guidelines and rules I thought required a change. See, Mr. N.C.Saxena, who's with us, had given a report, and there was another recommendations which were given by the National Advisory Committee.
Yes.
I have been myself working on this personally, I think, and during the coming week, I'll be able to finalize these and also notify them in by way of gazette. And this, I believe, will remove a lot of impediments and also clear certain
Mr. Dev,
aspects
what do you,
which have remained
Mr. Dev, what do you,
gray areas.
Mr. Dev, what do you think is the major impediment right now in the implementation?
The major impediment in implementation, as I told you, there was certain lacuna in the rules and guidelines which were being misinterpreted by probably some state governments who did not want to effectively implement the provisions of the Act.
Why do you think the state governments are being so tardy in its implementation? What are the various Are there any vested interests acting? What is the problem? Why are the state governments so tardy in implementing it? And why is the central government so helpless in this matter?
You see, this, ours is the federal constitution, and these are state subjects. So, in a subject which actually pertains to the state, you don't expect me to recommend imposition of president's rule if forest rights are not implemented. All that we can do is persuade the state government, remove any impediments, if any, in the act or in the rules or in the guidelines, which, as I told you, I have been doing so far. And the vested interest in this is the forest department. I mean, it's known to everyone. This act itself had to go through a lot of rough weather. There was a lot of resistance from the so-called wildlife lobby, from others. And ultimately, you see, it came after a very long time.
Right.
This was actually sought to undo a historical injustice to forest dwellers, to tribals. I think it's about a century late that it came. And it's only 4 years now. And what has been done is not very, very satisfying. But I think I do hope that things will move faster from now on.
Okay, Mr. Saxena, the minister has been quite frank in admitting that there has been you have given a report yourself. The National Advisory Council had suggested certain things. There's quite a bit of resistance to some of the recommendations of the National Advisory Council. Do you think the things have changed now? Second point, the key issue as far as the implementation of Forest Rights Act is concerned, the Gram Sabhas. Many of the state governments don't seem to have given, empowered the Gram Sabhas to implement this act. Is there the problem lies?
Let me just say here that Government of India is implementing a large number of centrally sponsored programs in the states.
Right.
Implementation is by the states,
right,
but overall guidance is provided by the center.
Absolutely.
Now, if you take a cross section, you will find that some schemes are doing quite well. Now, how is it that the same state is implementing NRHM,
exactly,
SSA, but not implementing FRA?
NREGA
one reason is that some ministries do a lot of oversight and supervision. They produce report once in 6 months. On NRHM and SSA, joint review missions are produced looking at the performance of each state every 6 months. A team goes there.
Right.
Unfortunately, the Ministry of Tribal Affairs has tried to minimize its role by just whatever data comes from the state, they just put it. They have not sent teams, they have not evaluated the program, and when our committee evaluated the program, so far, I must say, nothing has happened. Let me also say here that there are three kinds of problems: lack of political will, lack of administrative will, and lack of capacity. Today in the ministry, there is no lack of political will. I must say full credit to the minister, but there is no capacity. Ministry must create capacity to monitor the program, to evaluate the program, name and shame the states. That is what is needed.
Mr. Kishore Chandra Dev, this is a very serious issue which has been raised by Mr. Saxena. So Saxena says that you have shown certain political will. Your predecessor obviously has had problems, a lot of criticism about your predecessors. Now he says that you have not created the capacity. Are you trying to do something to create these capacities, to monitor these programs?
I think Mr. Saxena is quite right when he says that there is lack of capacity. In fact, tribal affairs was actually a part of the Home Ministry.
Right.
Then it was taken away from Home Ministry and it was brought into the Social Welfare Ministry,
right,
after which the Tribal Affairs Ministry was created. Still, we are lacking as far as manpower is concerned. In fact, I think in a week or two, I hope to be getting more personnel in the ministry.
Okay.
I fully agree that we need to monitor, persuade the states, probably go ourselves into those areas. I am also trying to get it monitored from the states from here by creating a new software. We are taking these measures, and I would also like to inform you and the viewers that as far as the recommendations of Mr. Saxena and the National Advisory Council are concerned, I myself have reviewed the entire recommendations that were made, and I think very soon, in the coming week itself, you will see them up in my website.
Okay. Mr. Dev, another crucial issue. as far as the way the Naxal problem is growing, one of the things is about the 6th schedule, the areas in 6th schedule, 5th schedule. Why they continue to be under the Home Ministry? Do you think it should be coming under the Tribal Affairs Ministry instead of being under the Home Ministry?
Fifth schedule is under tribal affairs.
The 5th schedule areas are where the tribals live, and so are the 6th schedule areas. And I fully agree with you that these should be coming under the Ministry of Tribal Affairs. But as I told you, this was a part of the Home Ministry and things have stayed like that. I propose to make some initiative in this regard.
Okay, Mr. Karthikeyan, in these tribal areas where the Home Ministry has more control over tribal areas than the Tribal Affairs Ministry, is that where the problem lies?
See, the whole, I will reply in a different format. It is not the police or the CRPF which created the problem. It is the failure of governance.
Right.
Or you can say misgovernance. And again, it is the basic cause is corruption. The lot of money is allotted.
Spent.
Plenty of money is allotted, as Mr. Saxena was telling. But how much is reaching the beneficiaries? So, because there is no justice, and where there is no justice, there is no peace. Police, CRPF can keep on criticizing, they will come and deal with the problem, some incident will take place, forget it. But what is ultimately the solution is better governance, removing corruption and ensure that all the money which is meant for the development of these areas, the people, goes to them. Unless this fundamental issue is solved, we will continue to have many more incidents
Ashish.
like this.
Ashish, the issue now is Naxal, the problem of Naxals. You think that there can be any major shift in the way this problem can be tackled?
Yeah, I mean, the only way the problem can be tackled is with compassion and with empathy. Over the last 5 days, since this controversy has erupted, have you seen one word of compassion coming from the Home Ministry or from the Prime Minister's office or from the Union government? Now it's an accepted fact that there was collateral damage. Now it's an accepted fact that 15, 16 innocent tribals have been killed. What is the excuse of the Home Ministry? That they were used as human shields by the Naxalites. But what stops them from constituting a special investigations team, from conducting an inquiry?
We are running out of time. Mr. Saxena, last word to you. Do you see the need for a judicial inquiry? This kind of apathy, which Sunil also was talking about in the Indian Home Ministry, will this not lead to more escalation of the problems?
Well, judicial inquiries take a great deal of time. So, therefore, I am interested in an inquiry which can be done within a month's time.
Right.
It doesn't require, 3 years or 10 years.
Right.
So, therefore, and also we need to relate this issue with the overall problem of underdevelopment in that area. That is very important.
Just one last point I will tell you. You travel around these areas, you maybe have governments which have come through elected process, the process of elections, but there is no constitutional liberalism there. There is no rule of law.
Absolutely.
Rights are trampled upon every day. There are scores of judicial killings.
Mr. Dev, very quick last word to you. Do you think that you will, from now onwards, you and your ministry will now onwards become more proactive in dealing with this and as Mr. Saxena said, keep the pressure on the states?
Well, of course, from the moment I took over, we have been taking a proactive stance. And I fully agree with those who have said that it's not the CRP who has created this problem. Therefore, it implies that they alone cannot solve the problem. Okay. Problem has to be solved by good governance, first by recognizing the rights of the tribals, by stopping the exploitation and suppression that has gone on for decades and centuries. And ultimately, of course, we have to create a situation where corruption will have to be minimized, if not eliminated totally, especially when it comes to
Mr. Dev, we are completely run out of time. Thank you very much. Thanks to all my guests, Mr. Kishore Chandra Dev, Mr. Saxena, Mr. Karthikeyan, Ashish, Khetan and Sunil Kumar. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue on the big picture at the same time tomorrow.